happy place, and with all these incredible nutrients. And so when I meet someone like Charles, I'm like, wow, he is a healer extraordinaire. He is a mentor to pretty much everyone in this room, I believe. And then we have someone like Dr. Ben, who is like the Oz behind the curtain, and he makes things happen and does incredible things too. So we are in a room for amazing people. So 17 years ago, my husband Tom was working at Stanford, and he was working in thermoregulation, but they had a little device for their football team that cooled. And so if you watch a Stanford game, you see a bunch of weird looking devices on the side, because in between the quarters and the halftime, they'll just go over and put their hand in there. It cools the inside of their body, and then they can go out and win the game. And only Stanford can spend millions of dollars for their football team or their tennis team, because that's exactly what they did. So he was working in this science lab with two amazing doctors, and they were doing all these experiments. And meanwhile, I call Tom Dr. Google, because he's not a doctor, but he Googles everything. We can be sitting at dinner at a fancy restaurant, and we'll have a conversation like, okay, and he has to Google it. I'm like, can you wait until dessert or go home before Google? But no, Dr. Google can't. So he Googled something about migraines, and a Google alert came up. And there was a doctor in Florida that was working on female patients that had issues with hypothyroid and hyperthyroid. So he was injecting T3 and T4 hormones in their carotid artery, which is extremely dangerous. And he noticed that some of the women whose body core was raising just a little bit, their migraines were disappearing. And he's like, huh. So he calls the doctors and he says, you know what? I want to try something. I want to do a prototype for heat for my sister-in-law who has migraines. And they're like, oh, Tom, don't be an idiot. Everyone knows migraines like cold. Guess what? They don't. But we didn't know that at the time. So right before Super Bowl 17 years ago, I call my sister. She has a migraine. She's day 3 of a day 5 migraine. I've never seen her when she has a migraine. Yeah, if we can lower all those, that'd be awesome. So I've never seen her in a migraine. I'm not allowed to see her. I can't talk to her on the phone. But because we have this prototype, we go to their house. She comes out in crutches because she's also an amputee from a very bad car accident. And she just looks like the walking death. And I'm like gray, and can't hardly speak, and hasn't eaten in 3 days. We sit her down. My brother-in-law happens to be a physician. He's a cancer radiology therapist, right? So we're like, well, what's the worst that can happen? We have a doctor here, because she's patient number 1. We have absolutely no protocol, absolutely no idea what we're going to do, but we're going to stick her hand in the device. So she's ashen gray. About 10 minutes later, she starts to go ashen gray to light pink, and we're like, huh, what's that? And her husband is like this, because that's his interesting stance when he does this. And Tom is like pacing, and then he asks the question, Gaynor, how do you feel? And she said, well, I still have a little bit of a migraine, and I'm hungry. And we're like, whoa, she hasn't eaten in 3 days, and I don't think I'm going to have to take my medication. And we're like, wow, that's awesome. So my brother-in-law gets his checkbook out and says, how much? And we're like, oh, no. You don't understand. This is a prototype from Stanford, and this is borrowing. And they're like, he says, you tell those people at Stanford that it was in your car and someone came and stole it, because it's not leaving this house. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So, and yet again, we have no protocol. We have no idea what to do. So Tom's like, okay, Gaynor, when you don't have a migraine, do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. And that is helping raising your body core temperature just a little tiny bit, enough to let your body heal, right? And if you do have a migraine, and we didn't know this years later when we had another doctor, Dr. Joanne Tall, who had a migraines and flew all over the world trying to get rid of her migraines. And we were the only thing that she could use to get rid of her migraines. So doctors being doctors, no disrespect, Dr. Ben, doctors being doctors, if it works, oh, I'm going to do more. Well, you can't do that with a migraine. See, you know that, but not everybody does. So you can only do, if you have a migraine or a headache, you only do 10 minutes. And so that was our journey. So us being the most positive people on the planet, we are going to cure the world of migraines. And then someone said, Tom, have you met the FDA? And Tom goes, what's that? I mean, that's how naive green we were. We were just gonna cure the world of migraines. I mean, I would come back from Costco and I'd walk in my front door and there'd be 5 people using machines and I'm like, hi, how are you? Can I get you something to drink? I had no, we had strangers knocking on our condo door because the word got out about people helping and getting relief from migraines, because 85 million of us have migraines. And it's just because we're stressed to the max, right? Mostly because we can't put our phones down. So we live in something called the sympathetic, which is fight or flight. And thousands of years ago, you had 2 events. You had when you were getting food or when you were going to be food. That is when you're in the sympathetic. Now, we have about 100 different events in 24 hours because most of us, we can't put our phones down and we just live in a stressful environment. And what we learn along the way is because we are helping your body relax completely, overall muscular relaxation, which is part of our FDA clearance. So we're FDA cleared for aches, pains, strains, overall muscular relaxation. That's a big one because that's a big waterfall for many, many different things that we have wrong, especially autoimmune. Now, we're not cleared for a lot of autoimmune, and then we're cleared for arthritis. So anyone who has arthritis, we are very, very helpful. And so those are the 5 things that I can talk about. In my little Bible here, I have a lot of things that I can show and tell, but can't really say. And I wish I could scream it from the mountains, but that just takes a lot of money to do a lot of clinical studies so we can hopefully get that clearance. So, fast forward now, here we are, 17 years, over 30 million treatments, not one adverse event reported, which means we have heard nothing about anyone being sick or anything from it, because it's basically dry heat, a vacuum, and your body. Very, very simple. So I'm going to tell you what it's doing, because everyone's like, it looks like a bread box, and it's warm. What's it doing? So you put your mitt on, and you must wear the mitt, because your hands and your wrists have a lot of oils. So if you don't have the mitt, over a while, you get a lot of black yucky buildup on the hand pad, which has the heat distributed. And it looks gross because I've seen a lot of them come back to the office. And we're like, no mitt? No mitt, okay. And by the way, a grocery bag doesn't work because people have tried that too.